sup with some digestive improving tea. Energy. What a fascinating and complex topic to study. Fascinating because it underpins literally everything about our economy and what we do. Take, for example, the human body. You must energize it in the form of food, but also spiritually energize it, because if you create for yourself a vision, you will find that from that vision there will come motivation to act. Complex because not all energy is created equal. And although the EU seeks to transition from dirty energy to clean energy, from old oil-based energy to new renewables-based energy, it's not that simple. Let's look, for example, at this report written by the think tank Ember. In this report, they mentioned that renewables generated 30% of Europe's electricity in the first 6 months of 2024, compared to just 27% electricity being generated by fossil fuels. That's a milestone. That is a laudable achievement. Well done, Europe. But, and here's the caveat, here's the important piece of nuance. Electricity isn't everything. And this comes back to the point about energy being complex and not all energy being created equal. Electricity is but one source of energy or energy carrier that can fulfill certain societal functions. It is well suited to certain functions and unsuitable for other functions. For example, heating a home and cooking food can be done using electricity, provided you have the tech that can convert said electricity into those forms. But electricity is no use for powering a big lorry across long distances. It's too heavy, and the distances are too great for electricity as an energy source to power that machine. So we have to consider the different properties of energy if we are to speak about an energy transition in real terms, in an energy aware way. Let's get to the point about renewables. Renewables are not as renewable as we'd like to think. One of the predominant cultural narratives revolves around this idea of energy transition from old dirty energy to new clean energy, which obviously includes what are called renewables. But renewable energy sources aren't renewable in the sense that a tree or a fox is renewable. These organisms can reproduce themselves using solar flows of energy for an indefinitely long period of time. The wind turbines and solar panels that are themselves the renewable technologies cannot do the same thing. They require an upfront investment of fossil fuel energy to be created to mine the rare earth metals that go into the solar panels, or to create the concrete foundations that hold the wind turbines in place in offshore wind turbine farms. So although when they're creating energy, it is relatively cleaner to the coal-powered electricity plants, for example, it's not completely devoid of fossil fuel input. And that's a point that is rarely spoken to and therefore not quite understood at a popular cultural level. And then finally, we come to the point about energy sovereignty and geopolitics. Consider for a moment the fact that China is the nation that has more or less monopolized graphite processing, such that that graphite ore, in whatever raw material form it's found in the earth, can be turned into a graphite form that is usable in the battery storage technologies that the renewable energy farms require to store energy, given their intermittency. Again, that comes back to energy properties. But China has worked hard over the past few decades to ramp up its renewable energy production sector.
China, over 20 years ago, has managed to vertically integrate supply chains for rare earths, from extraction to processing to clean tech development to export, resulting in a massive dependency of the rest of the world on China. If you look at the European Union, for example, they are over 90% dependent on China for the provision and processing of rare earths. And this is not the only story. China is responsible for the processing of materials such as lithium, graphite, tantalum, which are absolutely critical to the age of electrification.
And now Europe is reliant on Chinese goods and services. In the same way that Europe was reliant on Russian gas, which led to a bit of an energy crisis in Europe at the time of the Russia-Ukraine war fiasco. So is it such a great idea to be dependent on the foreign nation that is China when it comes to ramping up renewable energy operations, when it comes to implementing these operations and transitioning our energy dependency from fossil fuel sources to green, clean energy sources? That's a question that must be asked.